Hello and welcome to Football 301. I am your host, Nate Tice. We are on to the glory position, the star-laden position. Maybe we consider them stars, but maybe not so much what this draft class is. I don't want to start that way. That's a little mean, but it's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. The quarterbacks for the 2025 NFL Draft. We're continuing our series on deep dive of the prospects for this draft class. Really fun guest today. Dane Brugler from The Athletic, the beast himself, who is feeling maybe some ramifications, some fumes that he's running on from filing the beast this week. Dane, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. The hangover of the beast is upon me, but I tell you, there's nobody I'd rather talk quarterbacks with than you. So I've been looking forward to this. This will be fun.
Yes, I know. I kind of waited to marinate on this a little bit because even I'm trying to gauge how I stack these guys up. So that's why I'm very excited to talk to you about it, because I know it's not just the names at the top that you have focused on. You're focusing on how many names were in the beast this year?
Are we pushing reports, 500? There's over 401 names. There's over 2,600. So it's a lot. Yeah. We can talk about my 68th quarterback if you want, but yeah, we'll stick to maybe 10 or so.
Right? Yeah, we're about 9 or 10 on this list. But yeah, make sure you guys check out The Beast. It is one of the best products in football media, I should say, and football resources that you can have. I use it. I look at it more often than I care to admit for a lot of pieces of information that Dane has in there. Not only just, you scour pro days, you scour all that stuff just to get measurements, which is a much bigger deal this year than it is maybe in other drafts because of some discrepancies we've had, which I'm sure has been a lot of fun for you. But it's just a great resource. Also name pronunciations, which I'm always appreciative of as the seasons go along. Learned that about Savone Ravel. That was a new one. That was not what I expected when I finally heard that one last week. I've been kind of obsessed. Is there any other good ones where you're like, oh, I didn't know that was how you pronounce that name?
It's a quarterback from Minnesota. It looks like Brosmer, but it's Brosmer. So you got to say the bro part. And so it looks Brosmer, but it's Brosmer.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure every position, there's at least a few that are just a little bit different than maybe phonetically what it looks like. Yeah.
Oh, Shough.
That's as good as you get right there. Yeah.
Oh my God, that
Shough
was. I remember the first time you said his name, I was like, it didn't trigger my mind. Like I was like, that's not. Right, and then I saw it spelled. I'm like, oh, that guy. Oh, okay. I just had no idea because we were talking about the Senior Bowl, and I remember that. Right. But no, let's just start off this quarterback class. Feels like a long journey, trying to figure out who is QB1, and not even just QB1, who is a first rounder, but. Before we start maybe going player by player, and we're going to go by the consensus board from The Athletic, where Dane is from. Austin Mock there puts together a consensus board from everyone's big boards. Anyone that's been following this draft series, that's kind of how we stack the guys up, and then we give our thoughts and maybe our rankings afterwards. But Dane, when you're looking at this quarterback class, maybe just the general overall feelings from maybe you and maybe from people you talk to in the league, and just paint the picture of what we're getting into with this draft class.
The fact that this draft class comes directly after last ye's class, where we had 6 in the top 12, 3 no-brainers at the top, and 3 guys that, at least played or showed the flashes. Jane Daniels was outstanding. Drake May, with what he had to deal with in New England, played outstanding. And then Caleb, you see the flashes. You see why he was the number 1 overall pick in Chicago. And then even throw Bo Nix in there, and what Michael Penix did with the limited sample size, and JJ McCarthy. The Vikings obviously felt okay moving away from Sam Darnold because of what JJ McCarthy's been able to do, the impact he's made even from the training room because he's rehabbing his injury. So that the fact that this class comes directly after last year, which is so top heavy. I think it shines a brighter light on the fact that it's just a lighter quarterback class this year. And part of the reason is we don't have a true 3-year underclassman quarterback in this draft. I can't remember. I went back and looked. When do you think is the last time we didn't have a 3-year quarterback. We had to go all the way back to 2008. It's been a long. Because
I was going to say, at first I was like, no, because Goff was a 3-year guy.
Yeah,
Wentz
he was a 5-year guy. But,
5-year guy because he was older. Right. I'm just trying to even go with those classes and stuff. Yeah, that's crazy. But
everybody at the top, like, they're usually 3-year guys because if you're good enough, you're, Matthew Stafford is a 3-year guy. Yep. CJ Stroud is a 3-year guy. Drake May, Caleb last year. So every year we had at least one 3-year guy. Yeah, you have to go back to 2008, the last time we didn't have one. This year we have 2 underclassmen with Quinn Ewers and Jalen Milroe, but they're both 4-year guys. So, it's just that's part of the uniqueness of this quarterback class is not having those hotshot juniors, the young guys that, you could really buy into the potential and what they're going to look like by the time they're 24, that type of thing. But also just the fact that it's a class that's probably closer to the Kenny Pickett year than what we saw last year, just in terms of talent level, in terms of what teams can expect from an impact potential. It's a really unique class, which is maybe a bummer for the teams picking at the top of the draft, but it's also interesting in its own way to talk about.
It is. I felt like this. I've had a lot of fun discussing this draft class, kind of makes me miss prospects to pros. But it's because I think it's just because there's such a lack of consensus. And I think that's just fun because you kind of see what flavors everyone prefers. And I keep kind of reiterating this, not just quarterbacks, just like every spot. There's a couple positions where there's a clear first guy at the top. But a lot of them are also like, well, this guy's pretty good too. So he could I'm thinking of like a Mason Graham where it's like, he's probably DT1, but hey, this guy's pretty interesting too. Like this guy's kind of closer to him than you would think, as opposed to maybe definitive. This guy's the only blue chipper, yada, yada. I've kind of come to comparing this draft class or this quarterback draft class to 2019, Kyler's year.
That's exactly the same thing I've done. Yeah.
Real? Okay. Yeah. That's the number one guy, Cam Ward, who spoilers, but this is kind of the clear number one guy. He's not a perfect blue chip. Oh yeah. No doubter. But he's kind of the clear number one guy and a good prospect in his own right. Yep. And then a couple other quarterbacks get a little bit inflated. The Giants.
Which team drafted the number 2 quarterback that year? The Giants.
Luckily, the Commanders already got their guy already, so they don't have to dive deep again.
There are definitely parallels there with because
spoiler coming up the 2018 class.
Exactly.
Right.
Kyler is my player comp for Cam Ward. It's totally a different body type. Cam is taller and he's slower. He's not as just fast as Kyler is, but just in terms of a lot of the ways they play. And then, the number 2 quarterback that year being Daniel Jones, who was realistically a second-round quarterback who got pushed up just out of need and one team kind of going rogue. And, that could be, we'll see what happens with Shedeur this year. We'll get into a more in-depth conversation, but it'll be fascinating on draft night, that Thursday night when pick 1 happens. We expect it to be Cam Ward, and then the intrigue starts. When is the next quarterback come off the board? Is it Shedeur? Is it the top 10? It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, and let's just jump right into it to the number 1 guy, which is Cam Ward. Number 13 on the consensus board. He was 10 on my last board, but he is going to be QB1 somewhere in the top 10 for me. And I believe you're QB1 pretty definitively as well, just going off your last big board before you post out the beast. Cam Ward, we just mentioned though, I love the point you're bringing up about the third-year guy, because I noticed the same thing. I was like, how many transfers there are, which is just, this is the realities of what we're doing. I am not transfers. NIL. Yeah. I am not complaining about this. Like, just look at the college basketball product. Look at the teams at the top right now. It's because all guys can stay in college and you can create these kind of super teams with depth and stuff. So I'm kind of like interested because now quarterbacks don't feel the need. Yeah, I had an okay year, but I should declare anyways because they might have this freshman coming in. I got to make money. I can't transfer out, yada, yada. Now these guys are going, I'll just, like Carson Beck. Why should I declare? I just tanked my stock. I'll just go to Miami and make $3-4 million. That's the new reality of it, which is going to be interesting because age with quarterbacks is going to be interesting. But anyways, Cam Ward actually is. At
this time last year, Cam Ward was ready to go into the draft. He actually declared.
Yeah. I had a 4th round grade on him, maybe.
And that's the feedback I got from scouts was, hey, he's a 4th round. Maybe he'd probably go third round just because of that quarterback tax.
Inflation.
But part of why he went back to school is because Miami, gave him the bag. They opened up the checkbook for him and said, we'll give you X amount of dollars, part of the NIL package to come here. And probably one of the best things that could have happened to Cam Ward is to get that one more year of an internship before you go pro. And I think it's obviously the way things are trending to turn that into a number one overall pick is pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely is. But you compared him to Kyler. He is your number one guy. Yeah. Why is Cam Ward going to be, almost for sure the number one pick in this draft and also your top guy, Dane? Maybe just speak to his strengths. Maybe even the growth that he had this year that I agree with, going from maybe that projected third, fourth rounder to pretty definitively the number one pick in the class.
Well, and I think you have to go back to high school and the fact that he was a wing T quarterback in high school, coming from West Columbia, Texas, and not a highly recruited guy. Incarnate Word was really his only option. They basically took a chance on him. Eric Morris, who was Patrick Mahomes' offensive coordinator at Texas Tech, was an Incarnate Word and basically took a chance on him. Yeah,
this guy's got
and so
what Midas touch.
Exactly. 2020, 2021, an Incarnate Word, he's balling out as a freshman and sophomore his first 2 years. And so Eric Morris goes to Washington State. And that's okay. Time for Cam Ward to go as well. Goes to Washington State. In the llast 2 years, you could see the talent. It's just there was way too much volatility to his game. That was the big concern with him. If you put together a highlight package, it looks great. But down to down, snap to snap, way too inconsistent. It worried you going against better defenses in the NFL. How is that going to work? So he goes to Miami this past year, and that progression continues. That improvement year to year. And the fact that he is still, relatively a younger guy. He's still 22 years old. And you think about where he's going to be by 25. You think he's going to continue to take those positive steps because I think he has the demeanor for it. He's a very calm, cool, collected guy. He's talking to scouts who have been on the campus and talked to coaches, talked to everybody. They say of all these quarterbacks, he's got the biggest chip on his shoulder. He's the most even keeled. He's probably, he's a flatliner in terms of a competitor where it just doesn't matter the situation. And we saw that this year. He had 3 comeback wins this year after being down at least 10 points in the second half. So now sometimes he's the one that helped put them in the hole. But I'm thinking about the Cal game. But I just
literally wrote Cal on my notes right now because I was going to bring it up.
But it was him in the end who was able to, and I was secretly kind of rooting for Miami this year to make the playoff just because I wanted to see him against better defenses. And, the ACC just was, I don't know. Really, unless you're in the SEC or the Big Ten, it's not going to give a ton of respect to the defenses out there, that you're facing. So I wanted to see him go up against Texas or, Ohio State or one of these teams in the college football playoff. It didn't happen. So, the tape's the tape. We have what we have. But he was really productive, and all credit to him. And he pushed the ball downfield. 56.1% of his completions this year, well over half, were all over 10 yards. So this is the guy that will push the ball downfield. Yep. He's a very bold passer, not afraid to try and thread the needle. You see him playing structure. You see him elude pursuit, where he can buy those extra half seconds. And, I think sometimes he's a little too nonchalant with the way he operates. And I think just finding that balance of being a little more urgent, but not losing that coolness that he plays with. It will be important for him. He's kind of as a scrambler, you see a lot of Mahomes. He's not fast, but he's very savvy. He takes the yards that the defense gives him.
Effective.
Absolutely. There is some hero ball to his game. And I think that is that's really the main concern is just, some of the forced spur of the moment decisions, we need to reel those back a little bit and just learn, the throws he should make, throws he shouldn't make. Yep. And that's something that comes with every quarterback with maturity and as you develop. So in structure, he looks good. He can throw with anticipation. It's that instinctiveness that he has as a passer. I think it really shows up in a lot of different ways. And there's a natural rhythm that he plays with. And so I think there's a lot of lot of things about his game that you can say, all right, because we have to look at quarterbacks as making a bet. And I don't know how Cam compares to, like, I think it'd be tough exercise to put him, in comparison to top 10 picks of the last 5 years, like quarterbacks. All I know is if I needed a quarterback in the top 10, I would feel perfectly fine betting on a guy like Cam Ward, that he can continue at this pace, continue this trajectory, and be a guy that eventually becomes a top 12-ish quarterback in the NFL.
Yep. God, you just kind of nailed a lot of my feelings. It's starting with kind of, you're talking about the in-structure stuff. And again, this is kind of what Caleb went through last year. Caleb Williams was a lot of the highlights are going to be the out of the structure stuff. But it's his in-structure stuff that makes him so promising. And I felt like I did a disservice with him because I was watching him throughout the season. And I liked him. We've texted many of times about these quarterbacks, and I was just kind of like, I like him, And I wouldn't full on go like, oh, I love him. Like, Caleb Drake, I loved last year. And then I liked Jane Daniels. And then now Cam Ward, I've really come around to like the fifth grader, where it's like, hey, and it was the in-structure stuff. I think some of that wing T offensive stuff, and maybe not being a groomed quarterback. Oh God, Mina got on me for saying that same term. A quarterback since 11 years old that's been taught to be a quarterback of the future has not been developed and overcoached and overpolished. And it's actually led to, it's funky and unorthodox, but it's the right process. He plays with the
Josh
correct
Allen
process.
Trajectory, right? I mean, it just,
it looks wonky. Yeah.
Well, and not going to a quarterback coach in camp since you were 2, like it was something you were able to kind of develop naturally. And then, along the way, you get the coaching to kind of hone it in and polish it up. But it wasn't something that you were programmed from at a very early age. Right.
He's not mechanical in the sense, and I mean that as a compliment. And this term can be loaded. And I even wrote this, is that when you say a guy is an athlete playing quarterback, everyone just thinks you're kind of painting a stereotype. Oh, it's because he's an African American. That's because then he can run, and that's how he plays. As an athlete, I meant more, he's balanced. He throws with arm angles. He's being an athlete, like he's being a shortstop out there that's throwing these balls.
Hurts watching him throw some of these almost
he
sidearm.
Scrapes his knuckles on some. It's like a submariner.
Exactly.
And it's fun. And so the creativity isn't just the out of the structure stuff. It's the in-structure creativity. And that's just, he is able to touch on throws or accomplish throws or attempt throws that some guys wouldn't even dream of. A quarterback like me, who was stiff and mechanical, I'm like, I would have checked that down. And there he is throwing an over route because he's saying, even though I'm flat-footed, even though I got a guy coming right at me, I can change my arm slot and get it around the guy and accomplish this throw. And it's not just a check down for an efficient play, it's an explosive play. And those things add up. It's like, yes, the mistakes happen. Yes, like sometimes that can get you in trouble where you are trying a more difficult thing. That's what you have to do in the NFL. So I'd much rather see a guy do that and try and rein it back than the other way around, which I'll talk about some other guys later. The sense of calm you brought up. He just is a winning football player, and there's just a lot to like about him. His athleticism shines with his balance and his body control and his core strength and his contact balance. That's where the McNair comparison came for me, the high-end comparison. I think McNair had a little more juice on his arm and a little bit more speed, but just that same strength and play style and creativity as a thrower. And you brought up the Wazoo stuff. Like, even as a runner, he became smarter as a runner. I thought it was like there's so much on him at Wazoo. And I remember when he played against Wisconsin and he had a great game. And it was just like, you saw the good and bad of him because he was trying everything. Every type of throw, every type of trick shot, every type of scramble. It was great because as a evaluator, you get to see him try everything. But it was also like a lot of bad with it. And you can even just look like this year as a runner, 83% of his runs resulted in successful play. That's design, not a lot of design runs, but just scrambles. Previously, it was 51% at Wazoo. And so he just became just a smart player with all this unorthodox ways to get there. So the last thing I kind of want to leave it at is that you mentioned the strength of schedule. And that is something I looked at too. And I totally agree with it. I love the Syracuse game for Cam Ward, but I'm also realistic about what Syracuse's defense was. And it was a lot of fun to watch. It was I looked it up. So FEI is kind of an advanced stat site for college football. Brian Fremeau, I think I'm saying his name right, kind of keeps track of it. And last year, Miami faced the 57th ranked defense, according to his stats, the FEI stats. And that's about, it's not great. And then I looked at kind of the other top quarterbacks. Shedeur in Colorado was about 54th. Jaxson Dart, I think, faced the toughest schedule, but that was like in the 30s. So no one faced like an overwhelming schedule where it was like, oh yeah, that was so much better. But it was just, it wasn't the greatest schedule. I think for comparison, Zach Wilson faced like the 77th ranked schedule when he was coming out, because that was always
that was a major thing as well. Yeah.
Major thing, yeah. So an average schedule, but no, I think everything you just brought up, there's just a lot of strengths to his game. There's a lot of fun to his game, on top of a little more polish than you would think because of some of the funky stuff that he does. The term I've come to is he's a jazz player that knows how to read sheet music, and it's because it doesn't seem right, but it's actually right when you look down to what actually the RPOs and stuff. So the RPOs is what really. I know that just sounds like a small thing, but like how he accomplishes RPOs, and like he makes the right read, but there's some of those plays where I'll see lesser quarterbacks. That's a negative play. Like guys coming at me, I take a sack and I got a legal man upfield because I threw it late, and he's getting the ball out right away. And it could be a, drop shot, like a little dropper over a guy. It could be underneath a guy. It could just be a nice normal throw. And it's just, that's the things, is that creativity of arm slots. Is there anything that maybe stood out as a negative, or what he maybe needs to work on? You mentioned the heat checks. He can kind of try some stuff that needs to rein in, but force some stuff. Anything else that maybe it's like, maybe make it a little tough or transition into league. Every young player has to face this, but just maybe for Ward.
Right. Well, and I agree with everything you said about how he is more polished than he gets credit for, especially in structure. But there definitely are some mechanical things that I think he can button up and he can get a little better at. Especially like when you watch the nose of his football, it's especially when he drops his elbow, and it really disrupts the spiral. And so it creates the nose of the football. There's different angles. And so, NFL receivers should be fine catching those balls, but it's not always easy. And so sometimes he can make it a little bit tougher on his receivers to properly track and finish the ball. And so just getting better we're more repeatable with those mechanics, even though he's going to be a guy that changes those arm angles. It's going to happen, but just being maybe a little bit more repeatable. And then the other thing is just the drifting. I mean, he drifts a ton, and a lot of times there's a method to the madness, like you understand why he's doing what he's doing. But at the same time, we talked about this with Caleb last year. It's just NFL speed's different than anything you've ever seen, and you're not going to be able to get away with some of that. So, like watching the Florida tape, like he was outstanding on the Florida tape. But some of those times where he's just drifting, like it's just not going to happen in the NFL. We're going to have that kind of time to sit back and look and really assess the field. So. Some of those areas where just being more repeatable with mechanics, being a little more urgent with the way that, he buys time. Those are things that I think will come once he gets on an NFL field and says, oh, okay, yeah, these guys are a little bit faster than what I'm used to.
That's kind of same conclusion. He's going to get punished early, like where he's going to try something bad's going to happen. He just has that play style. But I think he's smart enough and understands. He just has that, that calmness, and I think the confidence, and also, like you said, the chip on his shoulder, where I think if he makes a mistake, he'll never make it again. He'll go like, okay, I can't do that anymore. I can't throw this late, or I can't try that throw. I agree with you. Some of the nose point stuff, and I actually think it shows up a lot when he's throwing like go balls, like outside deep, and the ball will fade on him. And Derek Carr actually has the same problem, funnily enough, but where the nose of the ball, because he throws sidearm and his wrist breaks like this, the ball just launches that way. It's just physics. So I think, Nashville, he'll be okay. But, if he was in Cleveland, or, I'd be maybe, Meadowlands, I'd be like, okay, that might be interesting on deep balls. Maybe you make sure you have a good receiver. Neighbors would have been good. Yeah. But it's just, those are the things. And it tracked in the stats too. Like he was 56th out of 81 FBS quarterbacks last year on outside throws or throws outside the numbers, deep throws outside the numbers. And it's one of those things, but that's why he's not a true, and I think we're in agreement, blue chip guy, but a good prospect because he has little flaws like that. And I think he has a good arm, but not a elite top 5, top 8, top 10 arm, but it's a good arm and very much above the threshold that you want when you draft a guy.
It's very snappy.
So
it's very
snappy. Yeah.
If you're the Titans at 1, are you taking him?
Yes. I'm running up and taking him, especially what they did this offseason with the offensive line. I'm like, I think they set up a really nice ecosystem for him to he's going to have some early blemishes, but I think it's a good place for him to launch from. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. Not just because I think he looks like Steve McNair. I just think it's just that's just an easy pick for them to make. But yeah, and then the arm strength stuff too. I'll just say that he mitigates some of it because of his timing and anticipation. So he maximizes all that. So, but Cam Ward, top guy, QB1, probably a Titan. Let's move on to what has been kind of the consensus second guy, was battling for it, and you and I, another player that we've kind of been in lockstep with throughout this process, but that's Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, 33rd on the last consensus board from The Athletic. He was 35 on my board, might drop. But Shedeur Sanders, who I believe is having a little pro day today outside the Big 12 day of Colorado, and I think the entire New York Giants organization is there, probably for him / Travis Hunter. But with Shedeur Sanders, the kind of consensus number 2 guy, Dane, what are his strengths? What does he bring to the table? And what is his path to success in the NFL?
Yeah, and obviously everybody knows about his story. Who his dad is, coming up through and growing up in DFW, growing up son of an NFL player, around the game. I mean, you talk about polished. You could tell this guy's been playing quarterback for a long time with the way that his polished mechanics. He's got a very strong, balanced base, clean stroke. He understands how to lead his receivers, especially on those crossers, those digs, those outs. He's got a really good feel for those throws. I thought he plays with good rhythm in the RPO game, the quick game, which. That's a lot of what they ran at Colorado, where it's just
they're good. Those receiver screens, man, they were so good. That was the best thing they did.
Well, and look, I get why they did it so much. When you don't have a running game, the offensive line's below average. Like you have to mitigate that, and part of the finding solutions for that issue is to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly, get them into the hands of your athletes, let them go create. People hate quarterback win-loss record, whatever. It's to me, it's as relevant as completion percentage. It's it's something to throw out there, and it's it's not any more important than a lot of other stats. But when you think of Colorado,
bonus if you got it. That's how I put it.
Right. Well, and I think it says a lot about the quarterback, and especially in this situation where Colorado, they were 1-11 in 2022. And then, Shedeur and Coach Prime come in 2023, 2024, the last 2 years, and Colorado's 13-11. So a winning record over that time. And, the quarterback was a big part of that. So, I think that the Shedeur conversation it gets tough because there's a lot of people that view him as a top 5 type of player. You and I both don't think he's that. We've been very consistent about our thoughts on Shedeur since last summer, where he's a good quarterback. There's a lot to like here. Just don't like him as necessarily a top 5 needle mover type of quarterback, and that's there's few guys are those types of quarterbacks. So it does make the conversation a little bit tough when there's a lot of people dug in that he's the best quarterback in the draft or should be the number 2 pick to the Browns or 3 to the Giants, whatever. And he might end up being that'll be the fascinating part about draft night, Thursday night. After Cam Ward goes 1, we're on Shedeur watch. And does he get past 2? Does he get past 3? And if he gets past 3, then things get really interesting. Is there another secret team, whether it's the Jets or the Saints or, that could take him top 10? Probably not. And then, are we talking the Steelers? Are we talking a team in the early second round, the Browns or the Giants maybe, trading up into the late first to go get him? Could we see another quarterback leapfrog him to be quarterback 2? So the Shedeur conversation is going to be fascinating over draft weekend. But just for him as a prospect, I like that he takes care of the football. He really limits those turnover-worthy attempts. So, there's a lot to like about him. The 74% completions is great. It obviously is helped by so many screens. Yeah, it's just screen, and that really inflated that completion percentage. 28.3% of his completions just last year were screens, and so like that really throws up that completion percentage. It's not that I'm not saying he's inaccurate, or it's inflated a little bit when you factor in the context.
Yeah, and if you view Colorado's offense, because you would think, oh, Pat Shermer's offense coordinator played Colorado. Okay, I know what this offense is going to look like. And you watch it, and it's like, is this 2008 Texas Tech? Is this Mike Leach offense? Right. That's what it feels like. It's an air raid offense, and not so much air raid. Oh, just all the concepts they run. There's some, but it's more the air raid percentages of run pass, and we're going to use screens to replace the run game. I use this analogy
with Robert that it's like you're watching an episode of House Hunters, and the houses look the same, but then you see the price and you realize, oh, this is an episode from 2018. Like this is different. Like it looks kind of the same, but oh no, wait, yeah, you quickly realize something's off here. Something's just a little bit different. Yeah.
Is that stovetop legal? No, it's that's what it feels like. And you mentioned right at the top, and this is kind of what I came, and I mean this as a positive and a negative with Shedeur, you can tell he's been coached, and you can tell that he has, some polish to his game as far as mechanics and everything. But I also thought when you watch him, he's very mechanical, and kind of the opposite of Cam Ward, which is, it's kind of funny. And you would think maybe and this is kind of, when you paint the picture of what Shedeur Sanders is, and I think this is the disconnect of what he actually is and what you would expect Deion Sanders' son at quarterback to play.
Right.
And that's the disconnect, is that this guy plays more like Kirk Cousins or Teddy Bridgewater and not, Mike Vick, or Cordell Stewart. Who I actually have a player comparison for later. Spoilers. But it's you could probably figure it out in about 10 seconds. But but when watching,
okay.
And actually, team fit I like for him too. But it's right. But no, with Sanders, it's when everything's clean for him. When he has that pocket, he can step up and throw. He can fire it with the best of them. He's got juice on the arm. He can throw a go ball. My favorite throws that he throws are digs. I think that's where you see his strengths of his game. When he's clean, ready to fire, he throws a tight spiral, cuts the wind, cuts the weather, put it right on the money. It's just that the process to get there is where my issues lie. It's that I think that as soon as he has to progress a little bit, I'll kick off the negatives. As soon as he has to progress a little bit, that's where things come unraveled, where he has to move off his first read. If the post snap read isn't what he expected, it's scary. Is that he drifts back in the pocket. He takes a lot of sacks. The offensive line was not great, but I would say it was more below average, like you said. I wouldn't say it was the outright atrocity. I would say it's more below average for FBS. Is that he didn't help that out at all. He drifts back into the tackle. He changes the throwing lanes. And this is where, you've kind of hinted at, I view him more as a day two prospect because his athletic gifts, he's more of an adequate average athlete with adequate average size. Neither are, I would even say, good. And so that is where, if you play this way, you have to be kind of a freak in the NFL. You have to be a Lamar Jackson. You have to be a Jane Daniels. You have to be a Josh Allen. Those guys can do this because they are so freaking fast and big that, it's not perfect. It's not what I would coach. I'm not teaching this to a high schooler, but they can win that way because they have those gifts. And I think that's where I struggle with Sanders a little bit, is that how I project him is as a distributor, as a guy that works from the pocket. Boom, 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 has a good run game around him. Nice, solid quarterback. But I'm not taking a nice, solid quarterback in the top 10.
Exactly.
Because that's the disconnect for me, is that this is a tool set I can work with, but he needs development to even work from the pocket. And he doesn't have those athletic and tools and traits that I would take top 10 as he works out those things. So that's where, again, disconnect that I have for me. I view him as a day two guy. I think you were maybe a little richer than me, but same kind of tier, I would assume.
Yeah, he finished. But
any negatives you want to add on to there?
He finished 34 for me on my final top 100 board. So
I'm 35. So
right,
same
right, exactly. In the late first round, would I consider him? Absolutely. It depends on my situation, my offense, everything going on around me. Because I agree with what you said, and he just doesn't have the physical traits to get away with some of the decisions, the way that he likes to play, or the way that he played at Colorado, and so he needs really just a timing-based offense where, like what you said, a good run game, where he can play within himself. If he plays within himself and stays true to his skill set, yeah, he can be a distributor. I think, what's the best case scenario of that? Like something similar to what Brock Purdy's doing in San Francisco, like something, like where he's not going to blow you away with the physical traits, but he stays true to his skill set, plays within himself, and limits turnovers and just helps move in the chains, keeps doing that. And I think he can do that. It's just, he's not a quick twitch passer. The ball doesn't explode off his hand. And where, we talked about it with Cam Ward, the ACC defenses, Big 12 defenses are even worse. But right. if you watch the 3 best defenses he faced, which is probably Kansas State, Nebraska, BYU, those were arguably his 3 worst games, where you saw him really panic at times and make some decisions he shouldn't. And especially that Kansas State game where he was just he's almost in reverse, drifting backwards, and that nothing the tackle could do. There's no integrity of the pocket to protect. So, I think that you're absolutely right. The offensive line was not good, but he didn't help things. And that's something that he has to get better at, just that pocket feel and, the ability to really work from within the pocket. And you see it at times. It does happen, but it's just not consistent. And that's something that in the NFL, it's just going to lead to too many negative plays. So like Shedeur Sanders, but some of those drawbacks worry me at the next level in terms of truly elevating an offense and, making everybody around you better.
And then this kind of what I'll leave it at is, so we both kind of agree that he needs a little bit of development as far as kind of just getting to that point. And then we just brings it back to the original point, which is, okay, he's been coached up and he's kind of, he's got mechanics and everything. It's like, well, can he get better? Because, he's had some of the coaching already. I'm not saying he can't, just saying that these are the arguments against it and everything. So I think, distributor, not a creator, is kind of what I've come to with him. And I think he can do it. And I see when he's comfortable with a play, it can be good. It's just sometimes when it comes unraveled, that kind of second chances at plays, he isn't able always to attain those. And if you're going to be a guy that takes sacks, you have to create explosives to kind of offset that. And I think at times that he will take maybe some of the safer routes, make sure a guy's wide open before he throws it. So it's just that there's more development needed here than I think maybe he's even getting painted out to be. So that is Shedeur Sanders. We're going to take our first break, and then we're going to get back to the other quarterbacks in the consensus top 100. All right, we are back with the signal callers for the 2025 draft. Moving on to one of the hot names, the classic riser throughout the draft process, and another player you and I are kind of in agreement on, spoilers, but that makes me also feel better. That is Jaxson Dart, Ole Miss, formerly of USC. All these quarterbacks, I believe, transferred except for the next guy, Jalen Milroe. When you look at all of them, I know that's the new normal. I transferred too. I shouldn't knock it. But
you were the original. Before there was a portal. Yeah.
Actually, Russell Wilson was the one that kind of really broke that open. The grad school 5th-year guy that became a whole big thing. Yeah, he was one of those first guys. But anyways,
we can go back to Troy Aikman. He was Oklahoma to UCLA, right? A couple he got hurt. Yeah, you and a couple others in a short list. Yeah.
That's it. That's the only ones that you could think of. But no, Jaxson Dart, Ole Miss. Consensus 57th player on the big board, which I actually think is pretty fair. But okay. he's getting some some talk as a first rounder, as a potential sneaky QB2 even. Mm-hmm. But Dane, how do you assess Mr. Dart from Ole Miss?
Yeah, and when you watch Dart, and this is not a knock against him, but I just came away with my initial thought was, man, Lane Kiffin is just a mastermind.
He's good.
He's so good at putting defenses in conflict, and it's in so many different ways. It's different route combinations. He loves sail concepts. He likes to exploit space. Yes. He's very smart because it's not overly complex in terms of what he's asking the quarterback to do, but it's actually pretty simplistic, and that's kind of what the issue is everything
therein lies the rub.
Exactly. What Dart is doing on film, that's like, oh yeah, look at that. It's like, okay, well, he's not going to be asked to do, it doesn't really mirror up what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. And so he's one of those cases where it's not that he can't do it, it's just the film doesn't say that he can either consistently, where there are once in a while he'll get to that backside read, but it doesn't happen consistently. He's not asked to anticipate a ton in this offense. And he has some really nice throws on his tape. I'm thinking of that Florida game with both of his touchdowns on that game were beautiful throws, just NFL level throws. So, but consistently, that decision making it's a question mark. And so I get why teams will be, I call it the Bo Nix bump, where everyone's looking for that next Bo Nix, who, was drafted a lot higher than most everyone thought he would be. Turned out he had a pretty good rookie year. And, you see the talent. And so it's like, okay, let's just find somebody with that talent and we can turn him into a winning quarterback. And it's okay, well, do you have Sean Payton in your building? Because that's a big part of the equation.
Do you have the Broncos offensive line?
Exactly. So, with Jaxson Dart, it's, what's your projection in terms of when he's going to get on the field? How long is it going to take for him to get there? Like, there's just a lot of unknowns that are tough to project with him, but he's a toolsy player, good sized athlete. Yeah. I'm really impressed with him as an athlete in terms of as a runner, both the quarterback designed runs and then him as a scrambler. Sometimes it's frustrating because it's one read, drop my eyes, and then take off. And that's fine in college. And, it worked for him. But in the NFL, it's just, you want to be able to see him get through 1 to 2 to 3, eliminate things quickly and understand, why he's eliminating things and why he's getting to the backside. It's going to be much more of a process in the NFL. And it's hard to put a firm projection on, okay, it's going to take him this long to get there. By this point, he'll be able to get on the field. There's a lot of projection involved with Jaxson Dart. And I think there's some teams that might be willing to roll that dice in the first round, while other teams, and I think kind of the way you and I feel, it's like, okay, I'd love to draft him on day 2 and develop him at his own pace and bring him along. And I think we could have something, but the asking price on quarterbacks, it's a marked up price. And so we could see him go much higher than either of us have him ranked.
The Bo Nix draft pick is going to be one that's just like, it's still like has popped my mind as far as how I value these guys and everything. Cause it's just like, well, yeah, I know there's inflation. And say a guy like Bo Nix, who had a late second, early third grade on, I was like, okay, if he sneaks into the end of the first round, totally get that. Like 28, 29, someone trades up. But there's that type of high pick, and that's changed my math going like, are we inflating these guys a full round now as opposed to even just a half a round? Like that is what I have to, this will be another data point for it just to see. No, I'm with you. The first thing with Dart and what the appeal of him is the tools, is just that good build, good athlete, good arm, and throws a tight spiral. So you don't worry about the, weather or anything like that. I'm with you. I think the athleticism was actually one of the more like, oh, wow, you're a lot of fun. Like he's a good runner and good vision and runs between the tackles and tough, sometimes a little too tough, but I appreciate it. Like him trying to lower his shoulder. I said this to Mina earlier this week. It'd just be the Georgia game's the one that comes to mind. Right. Great run, lowers his shoulder, just boom, gets into the DB. Next play, backups in the game. Just like
his helmet comes off a ton. Like
it happens a lot. You appreciate it, like I do, but it's just one of these things where it's like, hey,
kind of like Jane Daniels last year. Different. It looks different, but it's like, all right, we know how tough you are, but let's think about self-preservation here.
Yeah, that guy that just hit you. They're now imagine the best player you're playing against. The opposing team has 20 of those guys. not just the starters. The backups are just as fast and big as those guys too. But no, and I'm glad you mentioned like the backside, like getting to the backside. It's like he will do it, but it's not consistent. And again, yes, he is younger, probably the youngest quarterback of all the guys we're going to talk about today. But when I watch it, and this just ties it all together. Lane Kiffin's offense does a great job. He repeats a lot of play calls where he only runs like 4 or 5 major concepts, which is again, it's an testament to what they're doing on that staff is they dress it up so well that it looks totally different, but you watch game after game after game, you're like, oh, there it is again. There it is again. And the one play that comes to mind is they pull the guard. It's a play action. They run a post route. They run an over route to the tight end, and they run a dig. They run it 5 times a game, at least. And why I'm bringing this all up, if Jaxson Dart was pristine getting through this play over and over, the play that he runs half a dozen times a game, then I'd be like, okay, look at this. He is all over the place with the reads. And a lot of times he's one and done. If that over route to the tight end's not open, hold on to your hat about what's about to happen. And you would see as the game would go along, and this is actually a little knock on Lane Kiffin. He's not the best adjuster. These are the plays I put in this week, and they're working. And I'm going to keep running them. You guys better work. I'm not going to adjust my play calls. And you would see the Ole Miss's offense really drop off in the second half of games. Defenses would adjust. Then why I'm bringing this all up on Jaxson Dart is, all right, now progress. They take away the first read, progress to the backside dig, get there.
Yeah.
And if you have exposure to this, if he was a freshman or a first year, I'd be like, okay, whatever, he'll learn. There's a lot of times with a lot of reps and games that you're not even getting to where you should be going. And that's a little scary to me. Yeah, you can get into coaching and everything, but I see guys that I don't think have great coaching getting to that. Drake May was getting to those types of plays last year. He didn't have great coaching. And that's where my concerns come, is then you kind of lose that. And then even looking at the stats, like he takes a decent amount of sacks. He was 5% sack rate last year, 15.5 pressure to sack rate in the first half of games, 42nd, 33rd among 81 FBS quarterbacks. So about average, maybe it's slightly better than average. Second half of games, 9% sack rate, which ranked 73rd out of 81, 24.6% pressure to sack rate, which ranked 71st out of 81. And that ties into defensive adjust. Dart's brain would short circuit. And that's to me means a guy that needs for more development, needs more polish, needs a lot more polish, I think, when I watch him. So just too many sacks, some brain dead moments at the end of the Florida game always comes to mind. Talking about Florida game is like Jaxson Dart encapsulated. The first half of the game is some incredible stuff. Second half of the game, it's like, wow, no.
Especially those last 2 drives, it's just like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah,
I know.
That was bizarre. It short circuited. He made some really questionable decisions, and it just, you can't put it all on, well, what is he being coached to do? You can't.
But you try to figure out,
exactly. And that's the thing. I don't even NFL scouts are scratching their heads saying, how do you put this in the right context? But yeah, I think you summed him up perfectly, because there's a lot to like. That he's very toolsy. And I think the other thing working for him is he interviewed really well. I mean, in terms of the competitor and the guy, the leader, it's off the charts. I mean, talking to Ole Miss coaches, talking to his teammates, they just rave about him. They call him the most competitive guy in the building. They call Princely, who called him he said everywhere he's ever been, quarterbacks, they connected with the offensive players. Dart was the only guy he's ever played with that connected with everybody on the roster, offense, defense, everybody. He connects with them. And so he's a guy that, you feel comfortable bringing into your building as going to help your culture. And so I think that's another feather in his cap that's going to help him as teams kind of, all right, where do we feel comfortable rolling this dice? And, I think different teams are going to look at it. Like if I'm the Browns, I need a quarterback ready to go now. I'm not drafting Jaxson Dart at least at 33, because I need someone that's going to be able to, I can roll out there from day one or relatively early in his career, and it's going to be able to help me win games. Where that if I'm the Rams, okay, it's a little bit different, because I can afford to let him sit and learn, develop at his own pace. We're not going to throw him out there from day one. So I think the fit and the different teams are going to look at Jaxson Dart differently based off of the timeline of where they want their rookie quarterback to be.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's how you can gauge what tools work with. What is that timeline? Do we have the infrastructure to develop that? Because he's not a guy I would drop in as a rookie. That's easier said than done. look at Penix and everything last year, but it's just one of those guys that he needs development and needs time with some of the stuff. And also just the last thing is that the word I came to is that he needs things kind of clean for him. I thought he was a good thrower when he could hitch up into things. Like the read has to be clean, but again, that comes with hopefully with development, and you hope that the tools you can kind of work with that. We are going to take, that was our Jaxson Dart Hour. We're going to take our quick break and then come back with some more of the consensus top 100 guys and a couple other names under the radar that we just want to talk about. All right, we are back after the Dart Hour. Moving on to another player in the consensus top 100 whose stock has been all over the place. I considered him one of the most improved players in college football last year at Halloween. And I want to retract that statement watching the second half of the year. And that's Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Consensus number 79. Jalen Milroe, Dane, what to make of him? Actually, I'm going to give you the floor to present Jalen Milroe because I think he's just a very fun player to talk about for a few reasons.
Yeah, he's a fun player to watch and a fun yet confusing player to talk about because he's so talented. And you watch the Georgia game, you watch the Wisconsin game. I mean, he had no problem with your Badgers.
No, he didn't.
But he did like not. You said, that was earlier in the year, and then later in the year, it was just like, Oklahoma is fine, but they're not world beaters on defense, and he just looked lost against that defense. And it just like you kind of understand it against Michigan. Michigan, even though they were missing a lot of their top guys in the bowl game who opted out, Michigan's a good defense. They're well coached, they're buttoned up, and I believe there's weather was a factor in that game too. But for the most part, it's just the consistency is not there with him. But you're going to cling to the flashes, man, because the flashes are so much fun. He's electric with the ball in his hands. This year he had 20 rushing touchdowns. 12 of them were by 10 plus yards. That's the most ever by a quarterback over the last 25 years. The only quarterback even close was Lamar Jackson. He had 11 in 2017.
That's a great stat.
Milroe had 12 this past year. But then also he's explosive through the air as well because he has a really good arm and he can push the ball downfield. He had 16 passing touchdowns this year. Those 16 passing touchdowns averaged 36.6 yards per touchdown, which is nutty. This guy is, so it's like all or nothing. It's feast explosive. Or famine. Yeah, he is. He's truly an explosive player. But you know what? He does play with some calm to him. He's strong in the pocket. And so, he will be able to shake off some defenders and still keep plays alive. You like that he would win games. I like that, just going back to his story being when he became the starter last year in 2023, struggled early, benched at one point against South Florida. And it's like, okay, well, this ended quickly. But the mental toughness to work back from that. And that's where I think the Jalen Hurts, part of the Jalen Hurts comparisons come in for the skill set, a rocket-fueled version of a Jalen Hurts, but then also having the mental toughness to battle back from some of the adversities and some of the low points and be better because of it. And I think that's, if you're going to draft Jalen Milroe, that's what you're clinging to, is the fact that, all right, not only is he a really explosive talent, but he's smart. He won the academic Heisman. And he's also mentally tough, where he can, he can absorb the losses, absorb the negative points, and turn them into just being better because of it. And that's something that not every quarterback's able to do. And now doing it at the NFL level is a much different animal, but I think it gives you some optimism that he can continue to learn. And we have not seen the best quite yet of Jalen Milroe.
I've had an offensive coordinator, a quarterback coach, and a assistant GM. I should just say an exec. It should just be one of those people. Yeah. All say he was the best quarterback interview at the combine. They say
saying something. Yeah,
the best, and like definitively so. Went out of their way to say that. It wasn't me going like, "What did you think of Jalen Milroe?" Or them just going, who really knocked my socks off was Jalen Milroe. And like all of them kind of came and just offhand comments when we were talking about some stuff. And and maybe going like, am I crazy for liking this guy or not liking this guy? And all of them went out of their way to say something nice about Jalen Milroe, which
Well, he grew up in a military, both his parents were in the military, so it's very structured, very, like, he has that team first mentality. That's how he was raised.
He's a saving quarterback. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's how I kind of looked at it. It's like and what you just mentioned, he can handle the mental toughness and all that. Should be a quarterback at Alabama, man. Like that, the pressure those guys go on. I mean, shoot, we're going to talk about two guys that played at Ohio State, and like the pressure that those guys go through at that position, it's crazy. It's ridiculous. I played at Wisconsin, and I was the backup behind Russell, but like, I mean, we won, so that helped. But like, you know, but the pressure with that was like a little bit. But when I see what these guys go through, especially with social media, it's insane. And I just, there is a lot to like about him. It's just, I'm always going to be attached to guys that are good athletes. Like, I just think that's a prerequisite. And he's an excellent athlete. And just, I mean, it's not even, some of the best vision in this class at any position as a runner, like as far as piecing his runs and tempoing and like, oh my God, it's phenomenal. He's going to have me sound, I was going to say, he's got me sound like Bill Polian. But it's no, but it's,
if you know, you know, yeah.
If you know, you know. But what, I mean, actually that was going to get to my other point, but I do watch him though. And you just mentioned the ball pops off his hand. Like there's no throw that truly he can't make because of his arm talent and everything and how far he can throw and how hard he can throw and how quickly he can throw it hard. Like it truly launches off his hand. And ball acceleration, which I don't even think is a term, but that is exactly what you see when you watch him. It should be. It's that he is truly, when I watch him, it's that he has a long ways to go to be an NFL quarterback and just working from the pocket and progressing and going through the things. There's stuff he's comfortable with and you can tell, but he's another guy, much like Dart. Things come unraveled. Hold on to your hat. You don't know where that ball is going sometimes. I don't think he knows where that ball is going sometimes. I think he's vibing out there. And that's kind of a disconnect too, because everyone talks about, you know, how smart he is. It's sometimes, I think there's just that difference sometimes when there's the on-field kind of awareness and everything, anticipation kind of doesn't really play with that right now. He's definitely a project type, but I think a fun one, like just a fun one that could be interesting for a team that can maybe really knows what he is. That's why I mentioned the Steelers, and that's why I mentioned Cordell Stewart and Slash. You know, like that is, I could see how the Steelers and Arthur Smith used Justin Fields last year if they signed Rodgers. Like that is a team, just one example. That's the path I think he would have to go on to get him to be a starting quality quarterback to maybe tap into some of that potential. But is there any other fits or like where would you take Milroe, like, or be comfortable taking him? Maybe the better question.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on your team and like where you are and like because you have to be realistic about how long before he gets on the field. Like it's truly an investment. And I think that it helps that because he is such a good athlete that 3 years from now, if it's still not working, you could realistically move him to running back or, you know, like you can get him on the field in different ways. And
that's not being a mean. That's more of a testament to how incredible of an athlete he is and a mover he is.
And we're talking,
I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, and we're talking like, you know, we're going into year 4 and it's still just not working. You know, that's like the fall. That's plan Z. You know, that's a fallback of the fallback plan. So just having that in your back pocket is something that, you know, it will help a team feel better about drafting him where they probably have to get him. But yeah, the inconsistencies are tough. The fact that he completed only 52.8% of his passes on 3rd and 4th down last year, which is a very low number.
Feels like that. That's exactly what it looked like. Yeah. So I'm not shocked at all.
Yeah. And I thought he struggled a little bit on the road. And so when I looked at his stats and I saw he had more interceptions and passing touchdowns on the road this past year, I was like, okay, yeah, that tracks. And so there are a lot of things that you point to and say, all right, that gives me pause. That gives me, but at the end of the day, talking to a Southeast scout who has him ranked ahead of, or at least back in January, going into the Senior Bowl, had him ranked ahead of Jaxson Dart. And he said, bottom line, just give me the guy that's harder to defend. And that's kind of Jalen Milroe, you know, because he can beat you with his legs, with his arm. It's not going to be consistent, but the hope is that you can improve that consistency to eventually get there and you just really capitalize on those physical tools.
And just leave it off like that. That's the argument. Say you are comparing him to Dart. It's all right if we consider these guys both projects. Do we go with the excellent traits as opposed to the good, very good traits? Like, and really, that's probably what it comes down to, like when you're comparing those two. But speaking of Senior Bowl, and speaking of maybe another late riser, this is Tyler Shough from Louisville. Consensus 82. Seems like, and this was a few weeks ago, seems like maybe a little richer than that, or a little higher than that. But Tyler Shough, man, you were the first guy that kind of brought him up in January. I talked to you, and I knew I had heard of Shough, and I watched 2 of his games. But you were kind of like, hey, he actually had a good week in Mobile. That was like the one of this class, relatively, compared to what else everyone else is doing there. But Tyler Shough, who is going to turn 26 as a rookie, third school, played 7 years in college, had 2 collarbone injuries and a fibula, I believe, which are interesting injuries. How do teams assess that, Dane, or that you've talked to, and maybe how do you assess that? And what is Tyler Shough? What does he bring to the table?
Yeah, the injuries, the age, it complicates things, right? And it's something that every team's going to look at it a little bit differently. The injuries, it's not like he tore the same ACL twice, or like it's not anything that should be necessarily long term, but still, it's this past year for Louisville was the first time in his 7 years in college that he played more than 8 games. That's a concern. So right there, like if you're going to just grade him strictly off the 2024 tape, then Shough goes in the first round. But if you take everything into account, I think that's where it gets a little murky, and he could still end up in the bottom half of round 1 or 33 to the Browns, or, like that wouldn't be too surprising. But you're taking a leap of faith that he's going to be able to stay healthy. And because, he's been around a long time. He was actually the number 2 recruit in Oregon's class that year, the 2018 recruiting class, behind only Penny Sewell. So Penny Sewell's going to year 4 or
on a second contract.
Yeah, exactly. So he's been around a while, and I think that breaks a lot of people's brains. Is like, he's 27 or he's 26. We can't. It just doesn't work. We don't see guys like that. It's just a very unique case, and so I went into the Senior Bowl. Going into the Senior Bowl, I was very high on Shough. I had that day 2 grade on him, and I said he's going to be a quarterback 4 for me. And over the last 3 months, I think some people have passed me in terms of being even more excited about Shough, but the ball explodes off his hand. He's got a hitchless delivery. He's got some mobility to him. I think he sees things late, especially over the middle of the field, and that's going to get him in trouble in the NFL. But he has a lot of the tools that I want to work with, and I think he's a smart guy. So I understand on day 2 why you roll the dice on a player like this.
I feel like some team on day 2 is going to fall into the narrative of, draft the older quarterback. He's ready-made. We can start him right here. And I could already see it happening. Yeah. Like, I would not be shocked if Shough, at the very least, goes round 2, even though that's kind of the quarterback dead area. I would not be shocked because I can see the arguments getting made for him. Yep. And when I watch him, I kind of felt like an NFL coach when I watch him, because you're like, see that throw? Like, oh my God, look at that spin. Who cares if he's 25? Like, just watch that throw. And you see, he's not taking sacks. He's, oh my God, look at this. But like you mentioned, tape is just one part of a prospect's profile. Like, you got to look at character. You got to look at medicals. Not saying his character is bad, but that's just a part of it. Character, medicals, age, all those things are components of a player's profile. So that's why sometimes tape is just so overwhelming. Who gives a crap? But then there's other things that these are tiebreakers. These are things that you have to lean into. This is part of the team makeup as well as the player makeup as well. But man, he can spin it. But then as soon as I watch him spin it, I look at the age and I'm like, oh yeah, this would be the oldest first round quarterback since Brandon Weeden. Who's 29. For some reason in my head he's 27, and then every time I see it, he was 29. Mike Holmgren, man.
Browns are desperate for a quarterback that year.
So desperate. I remember that class too. I remember everything about that one. Oh man. But anyways, very well. But he doesn't take sacks, which is a good and bad thing. He's got, he is allergic to it. Some of that might be because of his past injuries. It could lead to some comical throwaways. He was second in FBS last year in throwaways. He had 31. Only 2 quarterbacks were above 30. I can give you 5 minutes, maybe think of who was number 1, his receivers in this class. But just say there's a lot of nice polish with him, some high-end throws. He's a good athlete. He throws well on the move. I thought all of his best throws were when he's throwing to the left. which is really good. I think he's a flexible athlete, much more than even like Sanders is or something like that. It's just that the player profile, he's old and he's been hurt. So it's like, how do you gauge that? To me, that's a round 3 guy. Even if I appreciate the arm, if this guy was 21 coming out, like you said, he's a top 15 pick, but top 20 pick, like pretty easily because of just what he's showing, but he's not. He's about to be 26. So you just have to be realistic with it. But, and also if you want to be a pessimist, you just go, well, of course he knows how to do that and avoid sacks. He's about to be 26. He's in his 7th year of college. So that's, again, what you have to gauge. There's some Case Keenum to his game. That's like kind of my optimistic timeline for him of what he could be, like kind of maybe a Case Keenum career, but Case Keenum was undrafted, I think. But Shough's got a little more tools than that. But I don't know. There's some Case Keenum to his game. But yeah, Tyler Shough. I know you got
threw out like a more talented Aiden O'Connell kind of where another Brom guy. So he's got more tools to work with.
They play a lot alike. Actually, now that you say that, even their best throws are kind of the same.
Right. Huh. Right.
No, Brom knows what he's doing, man. We just gave Kiffin his flowers. Brom is really good. Really good. The other one I want to give a shout out to is Florida's offensive line coach. Got to learn his name. Florida, they're not the best. They got a lot better this year, but I like Austin Barber, the left tackle.
He's good. We'll talk about him next year.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next year. But yeah, Florida's offensive line was another good coaching spot I saw there. But yeah, I think we're in agreement. It's like Shough's got talent. He can spin it. He's got qualities. It's just you got to look at everything. So those are the consensus top 100 quarterbacks, but there are plenty of interesting names, which I think is valid. I think really this is as eye of the beholder class as you'll ever get, especially with this group of guys. But the rest I look at is Will Howard, Ohio State, Riley. This is not in order. This is just naming names. Will Howard, Ohio State, Riley Leonard, Notre Dame, Quinn Ewers, Texas, Dylan Gabriel, Oregon, Kyle McCord, Syracuse. Of those guys, Dane, any that maybe pique your interest that you would maybe put at the top of that little group, or maybe just ones that you want to talk about?
So Quinn Ewers did sneak into my final top 100 out of Texas. And, he's a guy that he was a millionaire before he ever got to Ohio State, before he took a college snap. Like NIL,
multi-time.
That was a big thing with him. But I think, when you look at, especially, I'm most impressed by what he did on the road. Like you think about 2023 Alabama, 2024 Michigan. Like on the road, he's just a very calm guy. Like he doesn't get affected by anything. And I think that just speaks to his mentality, which is, a big thing. If Quinn Ewers could stay healthy, I think he'd firmly go top 100 and be a guy that people liked more. It's just he gets banged up a lot, and that really affects him. And he'll play through it sometimes, to his credit, but it doesn't matter. Like in the NFL, you have to play hurt, and if that's affecting the whether you can execute, that's not going to work. And so I think that there's a lot to like about Ewers. There's the things that he's not a big time athlete. He's not going to threaten the defense with his legs. He will drop his eyes sometimes. Sometimes the pressure will impact his decision making. So there's things that he still needs to grow and get better at. But I think there's enough there that if you allow him to develop, he has the mentality for it. And so I think he has the traits, he has the mentality. I would want to develop him if I could get him in the 3rd round. Yeah,
it's that his flashy throws are as high as anybody. Like it's just because of the trick shots that he can throw with and everything. It's so many. It's just like I can never get all the way there. It's like as soon as I started to like him, he would have a poor half or a poor quarter, and then when I always see that, I always default to traits. And then it's just like, and kind of more average-ish to me. But I get it. I mean, this class, man. That's just how, another guy I feel like you and I have had 20 conversations on air and off is Quinn Ewers, man. I feel like we've talked about him so much. I kind of think we're kind of always been kind of the same on him. And then my guy that I'm going to have in my top 100 as the next guy up, and I'm still trying to marinate on where I'm going to have him, is Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. And as you know, another guy we've had 100 conversations on is I'm a sucker for his traits, his athleticism, his size. And I just think he has more to him as a thrower than he gets credit for, even though he needs development. Just as a feel for not taking sacks, there's good pocket movement. Sometimes he bails a little earlier than I would want. I just thought that Notre Dame's would have a little bit better talent around him until the second half of the year. The receivers were god awful. His best receiver was a lacrosse player and a tight end with a gimpy leg. And I like Mitchell Evans, but the offensive line was really green. And I thought he did a good job. And I'm not saying he is a NFL thrower yet. There's maybe one NFL throw every 2 games on his tape. Saw more of it as the season went along, especially in the college football playoffs, saw more flashes of the throwing. I just think he's got cool tools to work with and a mindset I like. He's tough as hell. He played 18 games or whatever, and then just comes out and he's in the Senior Bowl. And it was just, I thought that was really cool. And I'm not usually a sucker for that kind of stuff. I'm just like, whatever, they have to be pros. But I don't know. I just think that he plays with that mindset that I like. And I've just staying bullish on him because I think he's a backup, but I just think there's stuff to work with that you can maybe get it out of him in the long run.
And that's fair. I mean, that's absolutely fair because the tools are, I think, are easy to latch onto and say, yeah, I'd love to work with this. The chicken egg argument is, okay, did Notre Dame, did that offense limit Riley Leonard, or did Riley Leonard limit the Notre Dame passing offense?
Duke I think that's the same thing with him, and that's
right, exactly.
My concerns. Yes.
Okay, I understand. The coaching staff really leaned into his mobility and using his legs. Okay, well, did they do that because they thought it could be, their trump card and really separate themselves as an offense, or they felt like they had to because they didn't trust the quarterback to make the downfield throws, or maybe they didn't trust the receivers? I mean, there's those, that's what scouts are asking themselves when they talk about Riley Leonard. I don't know. When I watched his tape, I just wanted to see more NFL throws on his tape to really convince me. I don't think there's a ton separating him from like Sam Ehlinger when he's coming out of Texas. A good sized kid he's got mobility. You love the mentality. I think Riley has a better arm than Ehlinger does, but there's just not a ton separating those two for me. In terms of watching their college tape and seeing what they do, I was really hoping we were able to see Riley Leonard in a more just pro style, push the ball downfield type of offense this year, and we didn't get it.
I agree, because it was like, even when they did throw the ball, it was a lot of, it's 3rd and 4, let's get 5 yards. It wasn't even like him throw a dig on a high low. It was really a lot of heavy designer plays, and that's where. Because then I see him handle protections. So I was like, okay, you're mentally okay because they're giving you protection duty. But then why aren't they giving you complicated concepts? And then again, like we're just discussing here, I've been battling with it too. Because I'm just like, all right, obviously you're a smart dude, but they don't trust you to throw in that. Okay, all right, so let's figure that out. So had to give him a mention, maybe one-liner. Will Howard, good and bad. If you were, what's the argument for Will Howard? What's the argument against him? Maybe just one line, because I know you got to go.
Well, I mean, with Will Howard, the way he played down the stretch for Ohio State to lead them to the national title, I mean, he deserves his flowers. Yeah, he give him a lot of credit for the way he played. I think he's another guy that's really mentally tough. You think about the Penn State game, throwing that pick 6 right away. He battles back and is able to lead them to win in Happy Valley. So I think there's a couple plays on every tape with Will Howard that just, as an evaluator, makes you question his decision-making, okay, does he have the placement? Can he be consistent enough? But I think he has the physical requirements. He's a big, strapping guy. He's got the arm. He's smart. Yeah, and he's mentally resilient. Yeah. So, I mean, I think he can stick as a backup in the league. I think he has enough to do that.
Tough, athletic. He's got a good arm. It's just that sometimes you don't know where it's going. I just watch, and not even just the combine, just on film. If you just watch nothing but in-breakers from Will Howard, digs and like benders and stuff, that's all you need to watch. And when I'm talking about inconsistency, some of those throws are brilliant and some of those throws are 10 yards over the guy's head. And so that's where just those throws is what I think of with Will Howard. But I think of him a day 3 guy, but an interesting one I actually kind of liked. Kyle McCord, Syracuse, formerly of Ohio State, and got ran out of town. But with McCord, I'll start real quick. Really grew on me. This guy understands how to play the quarterback position. Syracuse ran more choice routes to the slot than anybody you'll ever see. But I like the Syracuse offense. I thought he was a good operator out of. Does not have great tools. But I think is a nice, solid backup for the NFL level because he kind of has got some Scott Tolzien to his game, which is that's just another Wisconsin quarterback to my heart. Badger. Now the quarterback coach with the Saints. I gotta ask him how his rankings are because
I think he's in Colorado right now. I think in Boulder.
I think he is too. I know. I got to hit him up actually about it. But anyways, Kyle McCord, just your one-liner on him real quick.
Very average physical skill set, and that's why Ohio State wanted to upgrade. He doesn't have escapability. The lack of mobility is going to catch up with him. But
Chip Kelly wanted none of that.
Right, exactly. But from the pocket, I think that's he can anticipate. He throws with conviction. So I think that as a pure pocket passer, he's one of the better guys in this draft. It's just when things fall apart, I don't trust him to be able to extend plays or create something. And so if Kyle McCord was the 90th pick, I wouldn't bat an eye. I'd be like, okay, yeah, I get it. I understand why you're taking a chance on this guy. There's a lot to like about him.
Yeah. QB coaches are going to love him. Because of he knows how to get it done. All right, last guy, Dylan Gabriel, Oregon, formerly of UCF and Oklahoma. All these guys transfer everywhere.
Obviously the Tua comparisons, being a lefty, being a smaller guy, it's just, I get it. There are some downfield limitations with him. His ball will die in some of those deep throws. He looks small in the pocket, but he is a really smart rhythm thrower. The intangibles are off the charts. It really helps mitigate the physical shortcomings that he has. So if you're looking for a savvy, veteran with a quick release, that's where I think the Tua comparisons come in, and they kind of make sense. And so it's just gonna be tough to see him start in the league, but it might be the perfect backup in Miami. I think that make a ton of sense.
Right. I know. It's just, hey, 1 for 1. Don't even have to shift the tackles either. They're just fine. But no, I'm with you. Just a little smaller version of Tua, maybe a little better athlete than Tua, but also the thing is Tua was a top 5 pick, which is kind of funny talking about these guys kind of having some comparisons, but no, there's some he's a fun guy to watch. Not really my flavor, which shouldn't shock anybody, but it's just, I liked him. I appreciated him, but I think of him as a day 3 kind of interesting backup type, just as you were kind of describing him. Dane, I hate to swear here, but you're the man. And
it's always the best, man.
I appreciate you coming on. I know life is crazy for you right now. This is your prime season, but make sure you guys check out the Beast. Check out everything Dane is doing at The Athletic. It's a lot, and it's a lot of fun to read through and go through how much detail you go through. But Dane, thank you so much for joining me.
You're the best, man. I appreciate it.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, make sure you check out Dane at The Athletic. I'm Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice or Nate Tice on Blue Sky. Dane, you can find at DP Brugler. Are you on Blue Sky? I don't even know.
I've tweeted twice.
Blue Sky
twice. Yeah.
You blued yourself? Twice. Yeah, but no, make sure you check out Dane's stuff there. But also send those mailbag questions, football301 mailbag at yahoosports.com. Subscribe to us, follow us, rate us 5 stars, pretty please. And also, you can listen to us, but also watch us on YouTube, on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. All the Football 301 content is out there, plus plenty of other great stuff, especially fantasy stuff. Check out what Matt's doing right now. And Charles, thank you to everyone behind the scenes. Thank you again to Dane. Thank you all for listening. See you guys next time.